Hello, once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of the Gafford and Brown Show. I'm Lamar Gafford,
I'm Robert Brown.
and once again, we have a very good show lined up for you. We're going to talk about the NFL, the NBA. We have a special guest, a good friend of mine from Houston, Hiran Joshi, will be on the air talking to us about the Rockets and probably about most of the other sports things that is happening there, like with the Texans and also the Houston Dynamo. But let's start off things right now with college basketball, with college football, so to say. We had a very interesting week where we had the top two teams in the BCS, Kansas State and Oregon, both lost, and now it looked like we were probably going not to have the SEC into the national championship game. Well, they're right back in it. How about that, Rob?
Yeah, how about it? Surprise, surprise. Alabama's back in contention. Well, Alabama and Georgia consider that whoever wins the SEC title game is probably going to get out in that BCS title game bid. And it's pretty interesting, man. We talked about this for a while last week about how if Kansas State or Oregon didn't win this upcoming week, that they were going to get replaced by Alabama because Notre Dame's going to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going undefeated. And plus, the Notre Dame. People have been just waiting for Notre Dame to have a good season and, you know, win a bunch of games and, get back to those old glory days. So people want to see Notre Dame in the title game. They want to see Notre Dame do well. So, yeah, Nick Saban's gang are back in it. Can't count Georgia out, though. I see a lot of people who just, automatically pencil them down my head, I think they're giving Jordan not enough credit. Also, I want to ask your opinion, Lamar. What do you think about Florida State? Florida State being ranked so low with one loss. Do you think it's fair, unfair?
Well, my opinion about that one is Florida State has had a pretty decent season so far. Maybe at the start of the year that they had not so many impressive, not so many impressive wins and stuff. My my take on this is that it really looks like from top to bottom the ACC is pretty much is kind of in a down year, and that might be is a little bit down, and that's probably the reason why Florida State is actually ranked. Well, they're 10-1, but yet they're ranked so low. I really think that Florida State does have a good team, just as about as anybody right now, and I mean outside of Clemson. But the sad thing is, just outside of Clemson, there's not anybody that really stands out as a very good team. Whoever they play against in the ACC championship game, which actually now we now know is going to be Georgia Tech, since Miami then just said that they're going to self-impose themselves a postseason ban. It's not really going to actually give them a good chance to move up. So I think it's just pretty much perception of how the ACC has performed, and possibly also how the ACC has performed in the BCS games as well. What do you think about that, Rob?
I agree. I don't want to call Florida State fraudulent, but their schedule was kind of soft, and they played in the down ACC. I mean, when you get to play Duke and Maryland, who had a linebacker playing quarterback, you kind of get the bottom of the barrel in the ACC. You're going to pad the schedule with some wins, and you can't really make the argument that they deserve to be in the top five, even though they have one loss. It's a bit unfair that LSU has with two losses, and I want to say Texas A&M are ahead of them.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, Texas A&M is ahead of them. They have two losses as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of unfair, considering that Florida State has one loss. And you could make the argument that Texas A&M has played a far harder schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They've beaten undefeated Alabama. They're playing tough games. You can make the LSU is going to get the votes and is going to get the favoritism because they're LSU. And, you have those SEC schools ahead of them like Georgia and Florida who have one loss, and they have pretty convincing wins on that schedule as well. So, unless Florida State goes out against Florida this upcoming weekend and blows them out, they really don't have much of an argument to be in the top five. I can't put them in the top five right now. So, hopefully they get a little bit of love come towards bowl season. But right now, I think they're kind of they're in the right spot for me. You can make the argument for them, but at the end of the day, they had a soft schedule, lost to Clemson unranked. Chips just fell where they were, and people had high expectations for that Florida State team this year. So.
And oh yeah, and I agree on that one too because I think Florida State is right where they should be. Number 10 is pretty much right where they really should be because if you look at the 9 teams that they're ahead of, you really can't make the argument right now that Florida State is probably better than any of them now. That could all change, of course, if they happen to upset Florida and defeat them, which really should be a very good game as always between those two squads. But right now, I really cannot make the state their case about being ahead of them. I just also want to piggyback off what you said earlier about Georgia. I've just been like, I think I had posted this on Twitter like not too long ago, actually, that really nobody's really talking about Georgia right now. The number three in the BCS. They have just about as a good chance of making it anyway. I mean, of course, if they win the SEC championship game, of course they got that, and who knows, they could set themselves up maybe with a matchup against Notre Dame, or with a matchup against Florida. But maybe the one caveat that really nobody's really talking about them so much is they didn't have to worry about playing against an LSU or an Alabama. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's one of the perfect games in the SEC East. And, this schedule they got this year was, I don't want to say it's soft, but for an SEC schedule, it was kind of a cruise control. They didn't get down this year, they didn't get LSU. And, the biggest win this year was against Florida, with them in the SEC East.
Mm-hmm.
And that South Carolina loss hurt because you had, after that, you had schools like Florida who demolished South Carolina, you had LSU who beat South Carolina in the close games. So it kind of took away, some of, that hype South Carolina had, when they beat Georgia. So it's like, you beat a team that all these other SEC schools beat as well. But, you can't, they played the schedule, they won enough games, they won the East outright. So, they beat their bid to go to the SEC title game. Now they have to beat Alabama. And they beat Alabama, like you said, they're deadlocked for the title game. You pretty much pencil them in with Notre Dame because I just can't see Notre Dame losing to USC without Matt Berkeley. So, people are just not giving Georgia enough credit for what they deserve because, they're a solid team. They could pull off an upset if anybody could. And as we know, Alabama isn't as invincible as everyone thinks they are. So, I expect a good game between Georgia and Alabama coming to title game.
And most definitely, I think that will determine a whole lot of stuff because really I can't see Alabama losing to Auburn. Auburn's really having a down year, and right now I guess they're making everybody right about the decision about them going with Gene Chizik in Auburn, and I can't see Alabama losing to them. And then Georgia, I can't see Georgia losing to Georgia Tech this week too because Georgia is just so good right now. So really, I think it's going to be, of course, whoever wins the SEC championship game, they got it. And Notre Dame is they're pretty much gonna play against Notre Dame. Let's talk about. Yeah, most definitely. And let's talk about the two losses, too, between Oregon and Kansas State. Which team do you actually feel for a little bit more in those? Because they both really hurt.
I would definitely say Kansas State because, as we know, Stanford's been a stout team this year. They've had a couple quarterback problems, and, they've been in games, and they've been competitive, but to see Kansas State have this run and lose to Baylor. A Baylor team that's been giving up a lot of points this year. They just haven't looked very good this year. To see them go out to Baylor is heartbreaking. Because, they had a Heisman hopeful, and now after that game, I don't want to say that he's out of the race, but, it hurts his chances of winning. So, there's a lot of ramifications after that game. all you can do is just hope for the best. Just hope those programs get bowl games. Which they probably are. I mean, who knows? Oregon might play Kansas State in the Rose Bowl. Who knows?
That's what actually I'm hoping for too, because it would be such of a letdown right now to see those two teams, because last week we I guess everybody was propping them up and just seeing if they could actually get a chance to make it, because you got Oregon, which came so close to winning the national championship 2 years ago, but they lost to Auburn and Cam Newton. And then you had Kansas State, who 25 years ago was a horrible program, and then you see Bill Snyder comes in there, changes the culture around there, and now Kansas State is pretty much one of the good programs that's in the nation. And you kind of want to see both of those teams do that. And sadly, just to see both of them lose like that, it just lose their chance and go up and smoke like that. It was just disheartening to see. But hey, that's just how college football is, though.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how it is. That's the nature of the beast. One of the reasons why in 2014 we're going to have the 14 playoff system. Hopefully they'll ease some of the wrinkles out of the BCS system. But at the end of the day, you just got to win your games. Win your games. I hope that a couple of school rules and it gives you a better chance. It's not fair, but life isn't fair. So I'm sure I'm sure Oregon and Kansas State are going to get good bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have good recruiting classes and good off season. So who knows? They might be right back in it next year.
And they will, and more than likely they will be. And I mean, it's like I said, it's not the last hurrah for these teams. They still have very good chances to put themselves, I mean, in the situation next year. And of course, if they could just hopefully win out, and in Oregon's case, hope that maybe Stanford loses to UCLA, and Oregon kind of can redeem itself in the Pac-10 type championship game, they at least they might get themselves that BCS bid in the game. And well, that's just pretty much it. Um, Outside of that, right now, it just seems like I guess we have some very good matchups here. Looking at the bowl projections here in the ESPN, like we said, Notre Dame against the winner of the SEC championship game. But really, one that kind of stands out to me is a little bit like, let's see, you have let's see, obviously we're probably going to have two SEC schools in there anyway, and that's just the strength of it. But my question for you is, who you think is more deserving of getting a BCS bid between the SEC, Florida or LSU?
Florida, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a fan of Florida. I just saying it because they beat LSU. They beat LSU in a close game, in a game that they won on both sides of the ball. LSU has two losses. You can't hold your head down against losing Alabama, but that's two losses. Florida only has one at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
If they beat Florida State, that's another team that they add to their list of convincing wins. I got to give it to Florida right now. Nobody expected Florida to be this good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. A lot of people didn't. I got to say right now, I'm a little bit nervous if they do make it to a good bowl game and get past Florida State, because the quarterback play is a little shaky because Jeff Driscoll's out.
Mm-hmm.
But all you can do is just look at the schedule, see who beat who. Look at the record. I think right now Florida has a better record and a better schedule,
Right.
and a better wins. So I have to go with Florida. What about you, Lamar?
I'm gonna go with Florida too. I mean, like you said, the schedules are quite similar. The schedules are pretty much similar, but you also say, but you look at it like this though too. Florida did beat LSU, and Florida has one loss, and I really think that they are more deserving of going to a BCS game anyway. Uh, Whether it be the national championship game or being in the Sugar Bowl, I feel like Florida does at least have that right. And like we said, at least LSU still in a good game. More likely, probably the Cotton Bowl if they don't get to be in the BCS game anyway. So, it's still a pretty good spot for whoever for LSU, no matter what. But I have to put Florida at the top.